conversation with Steve Jobs about Apple, about the computer, about how it came to be, and about the company, and how ultimately the computer impacted the world, and so on and so forth. So he's having all of this kind of conversation, taking copious notes, and all of these hours of time that Walter Isaacson is spending with Steve Jobs. And when Steve Jobs passed away, Walter Isaacson wrote his obituary basically for Time magazine. Isaacson knew that for all the things that Steve Jobs had done, all the achievements, all of the boxes that he could check, all of those lesser things, Steve Jobs could check every one of them, right? He had money, he had status, he had influence, he had stuff. All of those boxes could be checked. But his personal relationships were horrendous. He had fractured relationships basically with everybody in his orbit. And that was most pronounced in the relationship that he had with his daughter, Lisa. In fact, for the first 6 years of her life, he even denied that he was Lisa's dad. Until it got proved in court. Then he owned up. That, yeah, I'm the father. You can imagine a 6-year-old daughter having her biological father say, no, you're not mine. I don't claim you, I don't know you, I don't want a relationship with you. I can't even begin to go there to think of what that does psychologically to a young girl or a young boy. But that was Steve Jobs. As Steve Jobs moved closer and closer to his death, and I hate to say it, but sometimes death gives clarity to one's thinking. He began to realize all of those boxes that he could check really didn't amount to much. And so he invested a lot of time those last few months and those last weeks in trying to mend those relationships, including with his daughter Lisa. And Walter Isaacson wanted to explore that a little bit with Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs tells Isaacson, he said, I wanted my kids to know me, but I knew I was never there for them. Isaacson then looks at Steve Jobs and asks him this question. He says, are you glad you had children? And Steve Jobs says this. He says, it's 10,000 times better than anything I've ever known. The good news is, the last couple months of Steve Jobs' life, he came to the reality that the highest valued thing was relationships. The sad news of that is that for 30 years he did not live in that reality. And so again, for the next few weeks, we're going to look at what Jesus says about relationships. Vertical, horizontal. How he nurtured them, communicated with them, sustained them, blessed them. Because you and I should have, as our highest value, relationships. Vertical, our Heavenly Father, and horizontal. Let's pray together. Father God, we just admit to you this morning, man, we just get drawn into lesser things. And if we would really stop and think this morning about where is it that we spend the bulk of the quality time that we have, what it is that we think about, where our passions are. While we might have to admit that some of that stuff is invested in lesser things. So remind us this morning of the truth contained in the words of Jesus Christ. The highest value that we should have is on relationships, both with you and then as a reflection of that in others. And Lord, we just realize we live in a culture that's just awash in unhealthy relationships at all kinds of levels. Folks that like to exploit the differences among and between us, play upon our fears of one another. We're reminded that we serve a Lord who told the parable of the Good Samaritan. We worship a God who asks us to love the Lord our God with all of our being, and to love our neighbor as ourselves, and that in those two statements comes one commandment, of which none other is greater. And so, Lord, may we think about our relationships today. And Lord, perhaps there are those in this sanctuary this morning that have some fractured relationships, that need healing, need forgiving, need love, need time. And for whatever reason, something has happened, been said, been done. And so, Lord, if that's the case, may there be a renewed and recommitted heart this morning to sing privately to you, dear God, because I love you, because you love me, I'm going to make every effort to make love my highest goal, wherever that fracture exists, whomever that fracture exists. So may that be our commitment, our value, our priority, because it was Christ's. For it is in His high and holy name